Welcome to this Fane online event. My name is Sabaa Tahir, and I am here with Rebecca Yarros, the author of Fourth Wing, and we are going to talk about her next much anticipated book, Iron Flame. Rebecca, I am so excited to see you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So I think everyone who's going to be watching this knows your work, but for anybody coming to this video like without knowing much about Fourth Wing, how would you describe it?
So I would say that Fourth Wing it's a new adult fantasy, romantasy, very heavy on the romance. It's about a war college for dragon riders where the basic rule is you graduate or you die, and it's about a girl with chronic illness who has to navigate that world with her wits.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Tell me, I'm going to jump right into our favorite ship, right? Tell me about conceiving the relationship between Violet and Xaden. Of course, we have the enemies to lovers of it all, but there's also this way that you keep kind of intertwining these two characters deeper and deeper as Fourth Wing goes on. And I'm just curious, how come you decided to approach the relationship that way?
So I was really fascinated. I think I love tropes as a romance writer. I always look at like where are our tropes and how are our characters interacting. And I think fated mates is something that's really popular. And I really wanted to see what a forced proximity would look like instead of a fated mates bond, and have dragons be fated mates. So though you do have an enemies to lovers scenario because of the rebellion and everyone having killed family members, you're really forced together because their dragons are mated.
Yes. Yeah, no, I love that about it. And we will talk about the dragons very soon. I am super excited about discussing them. So, you know, they have a very tumultuous relationship, these two. Can you give us any hints about where that relationship might go in Iron Flame?
I think it's safe to say that she's pretty angry with him in Iron Flame because he keeps some secrets. And I think that I love that it's a naturally complex secret in the fact that it's natural he would keep it. But also he kept some things from her that, like, as a sister and as someone with siblings, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't know if I could forgive that person. So I think where they're going is to kind of figure out how they navigate a relationship and if they can have one from there based on the fact that he's kept so much from her.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up because one of my favorite things about your book was the stakes and how, as I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I have no idea how this character is going to get out of this. So that was wonderful, and that's like a great way that you did that. So yay, good
Oh,
job.
me too. Thank you. Sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, should I put them there? What am I? Then you have that moment of like, okay, I have to get myself out of the hole in which I've dug. So
I have done that. I have been like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this hole. So then the reader's not going to know. And I'll deal with getting out of it later.
right. That was this book. I think the end of this book, my editor was like, we'll worry about that next book. And I was like, okay. Like, then you have to read the next book and you're like, now it is time.
Yeah, now it is time. Exactly. Um, I have a lot of scenes in the book that I love, but some of my favorites are where Taryn and Violet first meet each other. And that first flight she takes with him in particular, I adored it. I'm like a huge How to Train Your Dragon fan. And so I also love that scene in the movies. So when you started writing Fourth Wing, I'm curious, were there any scenes that you had in your head that you were super excited about getting to?
Yeah, I mean, I think because I've never been a fantasy writer. My first book was fantasy, but didn't sell, right? So I've been waiting 10 years to write a fantasy. And I remember I would wake up in the morning and look at my husband and be like, I get to play the dragons today. So I was really excited to get the dragons finally on page. So I was really looking forward to the scene at presentation when they're walking through the dragons and
Yes.
they're
Oh,
merciless, and how to handle that because you have a death of an obnoxious character. And I remember, just how to bring levity to that. And the first flight was one of the things that I couldn't wait for because Violet has Ehlers-Danlos. I knew she wasn't going to be able to hold her seat because, I mean, my shoulders and my hips slip out of joint if I'm sitting the wrong way on a bar stool or something like that. So all I could think was, she's not going to be able to hold on. And I just imagined this giant dragon just dropping her constantly over and over, and him just being annoyed, like just annoyed because he's modeled on my English bulldog.
Ah, okay.
And he passed, but he had this like grumpy get off my lawn energy because he was like 12.
Mm,
And so I
okay.
knew I couldn't wait for that, like that interaction, because Taryn is just, he's just annoyed.
He is he's a grouch.
Yeah.
And I adore him for it. I'm just like, he's the best. He's so great. I'm gonna ask you the same question about Iron Flame. I know you can't spoil anything, and I don't want you to, because I want readers to have the joy of sort of getting that experience for themselves. But were there any scenes there, maybe that you give us in broad contours, that you were excited about writing, either because you'd been waiting for them, or because you knew your readers would be excited slash brokenhearted?
Okay, so there's a scene, and I can't say what it is because it will give away a huge twisting event in the book. There's a scene with Dane, and I know everyone hates Dane. I got it. I got the message. I've seen it. Like I understand. But there's a scene that I have known was coming for Dane since I wrote book one.
Oh, okay.
I could not wait to get to in book two. Like I found myself like just driving toward that moment, knowing what was coming. And it was the most satisfying thing to write, to see an arc grow, and to see, where Violet grows, and to kind of see how that all plays out. I think is probably the scene I was most driven to, and how Xaden fits into that scene. And I'm sure I just sent everybody a tizzy, and they're going to give me a whole bunch of conjectures.
That's not a bad thing, though.
That would be it.
Yeah, I love the growth of that relationship, just sort of the way it went from kind of that childhood crush or that childhood love to really starting to see this person for who they are. And realizing that, like, that's not the right person for you. Like, that was really well done. So I'm excited to read that scene when I come to it.
And
Um,
that's a development in your 20s, don't you? Like when you're 20 and like you think you want something, but then you realize, oh, that's not actually what I want. I think it's a natural development.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've read in a few of your interviews talking about how you don't see a ton of new adult that lets us have like that level of growth. We see it so much in young adult, right? And we see it with, like, people becoming parents in like literary fiction, or, people going through a
Mm-hmm.
relationship, but we don't really see it in that 20s era. And it is, you're right. It is a time period where there's a ton of change and growth. So yeah, no, I love that part of the book. And of course, I love the dragons. You made them delightful. How did you think about them as characters, and how did you go about making them so distinct and so voicey?
So they're people to me. I know that sounds like they're just like giant dragon people, like they're characters. And of course, because they have their own politics and their own morals, they don't subscribe to our idea of morality, or our idea of politics or fairness. So to me, like again, Terrence based on my English bulldog, and legit, I would see my old man bulldog just growl at our puppy and be like, "No,
Mm-hmm.
I've had it with you today." And so his personality is very evident. And Sorrengail is vicious, and she doesn't like anyone on the planet except for Taryn and Xaden and a little bit of Indarna. She can't stand any of them. And Indarna, you have this like, very small dragon who's very curious and very, of course, childlike, because she's a child. So
She's a
to
baby.
me, they're just people. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So they're just like an extension of this giant, almost unwieldy cast that we have in fourth wing.
I I love how they will like fly off and make their own decisions and then come back and tell the humans and be like, this
Yes,
is what we're doing. I was like, haha, like that's how it should be. Um
because
so
it's if you ever read like a bunch of other dragon books, it always feels like the dragons become the pet, right? And the
absolutely.
humans are the pets in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I thought it was really original and a wonderful take on dragons. So that was great. Um One of my favorite things about this, I have so many favorite things about this book, if you can't tell, but one of the things I really love was how I would find myself kind of like grinning at the interactions between characters, like both the spicy buildup between Violet and Xaden, but also just like the banter between the other recruits, and that moment where during presentation where we lose that character and it's like
Mm-hmm.
we were annoyed too. I
Yep.
thought that was hilarious. So talk to me about how do you write dialogue that's authentic to each character, especially when, as you said, you do have such a big cast.
Do I think and especially because I kill so many people off. I'm sorry about that, by the way. But you have to care about a character before you kill them, otherwise their death is pointless, right? It's just another character that's dead. So I have to imagine that all of these people are in a room and they are fully fleshed out, formed characters with fully fleshed backstories and motivations of their own. And that gets a little, like I said, unwieldy. Like, cause there's a lot of them in the room. And so I know what tone of voice they use after the first couple chapters. I kind of get to know their personalities and their voices and what they would say in those moments. And of course, in edits, sometimes you have to fight to keep like, no, this is what this person says, or this is how this has to go in there. And I love they have this whole found family aspect. And you have to have that levity in a book where you're killing 20-year-olds nonstop. If you don't have that levity, it just becomes this dark, disturbing, really violent book, as where most of these 20-year-olds, except for Violet, who doesn't want to be there, are proud to be doing what they're doing and they're excited to be doing it. And Violet's like, you guys have all lost your minds.
Yeah.
So it's just mostly to me, just keeping them as individual people and making sure that if I read a line of dialogue, I should know who says it without reading the dialogue tag. And if I don't, then I have messed up.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you organize these characters in any way, like in terms of your workspace, like on your computer? Was it just all in your head?
So I have this giant fourth wing binder. My husband made it for me and he bedazzled it.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love it.
I know. And when you think my husband's like this giant 6'4", like Apache pilot man, right? So when he's like, I brought you a binder. So I write down a sheet for each character. And then as I think about facts about them, I put them in the sheet and then I make sure they make it to the page. And then of course you have to like put that into like a Google Doc online so that your entire editing staff has access to it and everyone can see it. Otherwise your copy editor is like, you what? This is what? But I keep everything handwritten next to me so that as I think about something in the backstory of a character or their unique voice or something that just sets them apart, I write it all down. So they're all just in there.
Nice. That's very organized. And I have taken this thing that you do and will hopefully try to use it.
You keep it in your head?
I don't keep it in my head, but I am I have like so many places where I put things that I usually can't find them when I need them. So then I waste a lot of time hunting for information. And I'm like always on the little search bar on my Mac being like, okay, this is a word I remember was in that document. So
I do that too.
Very professional.
But I know, gosh, no. My problem is I like handwritten. So I'll grab an empty notebook and I'll just start scribbling down notes as things come to me. And if I forget to take out that page and put it in the binder, I have like 14 notebooks around here and you will see me thumbing through each one, looking for a page that I wrote something like a note or a quote or like something that a line that came to me. And my husband just walks in and he's like the only neurotypical one in our house. And so he walks in, he's just like, and he has to back away because I've got just notebooks open around me and it's, yeah, I'm a hot mess. Trust.
Yeah. It's organized chaos. Let us say.
Somewhere it was a purple notebook, I think. Like
exactly. It's like the good thing is it's like you remember you wrote it down. The worst is when you don't write it down and then you know you had a great idea, but it's like frittered off into the void.
Like if you're in the shower and it comes to you and suddenly you're like, I have to write this down. Or I wake up in the middle of the night and like write down a note. And then I wake up in the notes like hill.
Yeah.
There's a hill and a dragon. Yeah. And I'm like, well, no crap, there's a hill and a dragon. But it's like, yeah.
We're all geniuses at 3 a.m., right?
So it is, whether or not you're asleep.
Yeah, exactly. So I read in interviews that this series is fully plotted for 5 books. So did anything in Iron Flame surprise you as you wrote? Or were you like, nope, I know what's happening?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I knew what was happening and I knew what had to happen because I had everything plotted out in like little paragraph synopses. It's like, this is where this is going, how it's going to lead. And then I get into Iron Flame and I'm writing Iron Flame as Fourth Wing is starting to kind of snowball. I'm kind of noticing it. And it's like, it starts to feel like I'm sitting at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. You know, like just that amount of pressure, just like squishing you into a million tiny pieces. And so I write the first 90,000 words of Iron Flame. And then my editor is like, does it have this or this or this? And I'm like, wait, it has this, but it's going here. And then I'm hearing all these things about, oh, I want this or this or this out of like coming out of book talk or something. And I basically, I ripped the whole 90,000 words apart for 2 months, turned my book in, and my editor was like, I kind of wish it was here, or this is all disjointed. I'm like, oh, I wrote it that way the first time. And she was like, okay. And I kind of thought this might lead to this, but it doesn't here. It's like, oh, it's written like that. And in the first time. And finally she's like, where's the original manuscript? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, all right. And I forked it over, and that's Iron Flame. So I think what surprised me more weren't necessarily the plot twists, because I knew exactly what was happening, but I doubted myself so much in that initial drafting process to make it happen that I cost myself 2 months of ripping something apart just to turn in the original.
Yeah, I've been there. It is a strange feeling when you start to hear voices beyond your own as you write.
Yeah. I've never dealt with it. I've always written interconnected standalones. And of course, I've never had anything blow up like this. And I think the voices get in no matter if you try to block them out or not. And so I took the steps of like, I block my name on TikTok. I block the book's hashtag because I love TikTok. I love like animal videos and stuff. So I wouldn't see it. That was it's like the only way to get through it. I just never experienced it before. And because the books come out so close together, it was a lot. I think it's the best. I feel like I say that all the time. People are like, how's it going? I'm like, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but that makes sense because it's all of a sudden, you write in a space of kind of quiet or, really what you're hearing is the characters, right? It might not be quiet, but like you're with your characters. And then all of a sudden there's all these other voices and opinions and expectations. I think blocking your name and stuff. I actually also do that. And I've done it for years. Like I've always blocked my Goodreads pages and for my books specifically, and block my name on things, and it's super helpful. So good job.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one, because I felt horrible doing it, but I wrote Fourth Wing in 2.5 months because no one was in my head. It was just me and a computer and the joy of getting to write fantasy. And then it was just like you said, the other voices come in, and suddenly you have all these cooks in the kitchen, and you're like, I'm making soup. And they're like, right, but it needs bread. And they're like, but I'm making soup. And then, it just.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I also think readers deserve to have a safe space to talk about the book in the way that they want. So that if they're like, you know what, Sabaa's book is garbage, like they can do that and not worry that I'm like looking at it, like.
I feel the same exact way. And I feel like if readers are entitled to their own spaces, and usually that's Goodreads, right? So I stay off of Goodreads. I always treat it like the Lion King, where he's like, it's a shadowy place, Simba, we don't go there. Right. And then TikTok, I noticed, was becoming a lot like that. And I was like, okay, well, these are reader spaces that I shouldn't be in. And if you invite me into it by tagging me, even sometimes I'm like, oh, I still shouldn't be here. But for the most part, I'm so content to be like, have those spaces, say whatever you want and however you want to feel. And everyone should have their own safe spaces, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that. So, okay, so I actually have a question about Violet now. She has EDS, a condition that you've said you and your sons also have. And I think that one of the things that a lot of people, including myself, really appreciated about Fourth Wing is how you wrote that into her day-to-day, in a really organic way. And I was wondering if you always knew that Violet would have EDS, or was it something that came to you as you were writing?
I knew as soon as I got on the call with my editor. I had turned in 5 different pitches, and then she chose pitch number 3. She's like, I think pitch number 3 is gonna be the best. And I was like, you think the dragons are gonna? Okay, all right. And we roll. And immediately I said to her, I really want her to have what I have. And of course I had to explain to her what it is. Not a lot of people know what EDS is. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of discussed how I could handle it, and how it's really hard to write chronic illness and say, hey, I'm not a monolith. And my kids aren't a monolith, but I can give you my experience and their experiences. Because even though you have like a 50% chance of passing EDS on to your kids, I gave it to all 4 of my biological children. So I've seen how it impacts me, how it impacts them. And I thought, what a great twist in a fantasy for a heroine to not be physically strong, to have to rely on her wits and have to rely on, her tenacity. And so my publisher was great about it and said, yep, let's do it. So I knew it from the second I started plotting it, before I wrote the first 10 pages, that she would have EDS.
Okay. Yeah, no, you can really feel it. Like it's so consistent and so authentic. So I loved that representation in the book. So let's talk a little bit about let's go into Iron Flame a little bit to some degree. Again, no spoilers, but we end Fourth Wing with, and if you haven't read Iron Flame, I mean, sorry, if you haven't read Fourth Wing, this is a spoiler. So we end Fourth Wing with this massive breach of trust, right, between Violet and Xaden. Can you talk a little bit about what we can expect between them, and of Violet's journey in Iron Flame?
So I think Violet's journey, it's so funny because you have to look at how they arc in a romance and how they arc as individuals, right? And so as an individual, Violet's entire self-worth is based off of what she knows. It's based off of being trained as a scribe and her intelligence. And everything she knows has just been absolutely ripped out from underneath her. And not only does she have to question, this man that she's fallen in love with, and is he telling the truth, but is everything she knows actually the truth? Like her entire education. Is it true or false? And so you see her kind of tail spinning, because when you rip someone's foundation out from underneath them, they have nowhere to stand. And in their relationship, he's promised her this honesty, but he's only willing to give her what he feels she needs to know. Because just like if you were to fall in love with a CIA agent who couldn't exactly bring his work home at the end of the day and say, hey, this is what's going on, neither can Xaden. So how do you trust someone implicitly if they won't give you a full disclosure? Is kind of how that relationship is heading. And I don't think that's spoiler. I think it's in like the first like chapter or two.
Yeah.
So we should be pretty good there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we also end with this revelation, right? Which is that Violet's brother Brennan isn't dead, and that is excellent and lovely. Yay, alive siblings. Can we expect to see a lot of Brennan and Iron Flame? Will we maybe get to see all three siblings together?
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm about spoiling. Thanks. All right. So you do see Brennan. I mean, Brennan's there. Because like you said, it starts as soon as, you pick up as soon as Fourth Wing drops off. As for Mia, you'll have to see, I think is the best way to put that. You will have to see, but some of my favorite scenes I've written and like the scenes I looked forward to have to deal with siblings. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to say you have siblings, correct?
I do. I'm the baby of 5.
You're the baby of 5. Okay.
Baby of 5, and I'm the mom of 6. So
like you have it on both levels. Yeah.
Yeah. I have it on the being a sibling level, and then I have it on the watching the sibling interactions level. And I love complicated family dynamics. I really do.
I like writing them. I don't like experiencing them.
I get that. I get that. And I watch it in my own children. I always have to remind my children, like, hey, at some point you're going to need to like get bailed out of jail. You will have done something stupid, or you're going to have to get like picked up for, doing something in school, and you're not going to want to call your mom, and you're going to have that sibling. So if I were you, I would keep building that trust. So it's fun to watch them all grow up, because their oldest is 26 and their youngest is 10. So they're all in that age group of like that sibling bond is really interesting. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I have 2, and they fight like crazy, but also adore each other. And then they always accuse me of my favorite being the youngest, which is our cat, which might be true.
So my kids always say, like, do you have a favorite? I'm like, yeah, it's whoever's sleeping.
Yeah.
That's something like whoever's not causing the drama.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite. Yeah. I should use that. I'm going to use that line. I'm going to be like, whoever's not causing the drama. That's my favorite child.
Amazing. We always call it like parenting, like monitoring a 6-burner stove, because we have 6 kids and we are just trying to stir and stir and stir, and then someone boils over.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to stir that one down, but while you're stirring that one, you haven't stirred this one quite enough, and this one starts to boil over. So you're just stirring as fast as you can to keep everybody from bubbling over.
Yeah. No, I feel that. And it's like when you can finally maybe take one pot off, then, this one's been burning on the bottoms.
Right. Right.
Yay, cooking metaphors. I also watch a lot of cooking TikTok. My TikTok is basically animals and cooking. So
I bake. I'm not a good cooker, but I'm a baker.
Oh, you're a baker? Okay. Yeah. I don't like to cook. I like to watch other people cook.
Yeah.
I feel like it gives me this, like, maybe one day.
Maybe one day I could see that. We used to watch like all the chef competitions as a family, and then we would find out it just made us really hungry. And then they would do the desserts, and suddenly I'm like, who needs pie?
Yeah.
And we'd end up like going out for pie or something. It's fun to watch that.
Yeah, no, totally. So you were right. We were talking about Iron Flame kind of picking up right where Fourth Wing leaves off.
Yeah.
Did you know that it was going to be a direct continuation, or did you try out a few different beginnings?
So that book had 3 different beginnings, and the ending or the beginning we went with is kind of like an amalgamation of them,
Right.
which is really funny because I knew I had to write my way out of where we were. And
Right.
it had been suggested to me just to take them back, like just take them back to school and be like, and this has happened. And I'm like, no, like, because with Violet's personality, when she wakes up, she has all these questions that you have to answer. Like there's certain questions you simply have to answer for her personality's sake. And so I wrote it a couple different ways where Brennan played a bigger role, Brennan played a smaller role. And finally, it's like I settled on like the Goldilocks method, right? Like the one that was just right. So I knew I had to write myself out, because spoiler alert, guys, yes, she's found things out. She has to have certain answers before they can head back. And people who are they heading back? Yes, it's in the blurb. It's not a spoiler. They are, yeah, they are heading back. I think some people forget that there are all those marked ones there that they're responsible for. So should they not return, those kids would all be killed.
Yeah.
So yes, they have to go back. But it was definitely, I sat down to start Iron Flame and thought, well, I left myself in a pickle. You know, that the moment where like past Rebecca or current Rebecca hates past Rebecca.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like sometimes I'm like, past Sabaa, I'm like, you're the worst. Like, why did you actually think I was capable of fixing this?
You do. You always do.
Eventually, right? As do you, right? So we're not, I guess we know ourselves. We have faith in ourselves. We have faith in our future selves.
We have I have way faith in future self, but you're more proven, right? You have so many more fantasy books. I have one. So this is, oh man.
Well, you did good. So I wouldn't worry too much. So let's talk a little bit about the villainous elements of the series. So I noticed we are learning a bit about the Venin. And first of all, I love that name. It's so like fun to say. Are we going to see more of them?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think you have to, because they're very much the antagonists. I love the Venin because I think it's all about power, and it's a very in human nature, we want more power. And if you're not selected by a griffin or a dragon, you have this other option. It'll cost you your soul, but some people don't mind that. Some people would trade their souls for power. And so I'm fascinated by what they want, what they're after, and how they're going about it. And because we don't know, or Violet doesn't know much about them because they've been hidden, and Xaden's been kept out of it so that he can't be questioned for the most part, there's a lot of, revelations that are coming to them about this enemy that's on the horizon.
Yeah. I'm excited to learn more, because I've always loved sort of like the dark side of fantasy, and getting a chance to get into that world is my absolute favorite. So yay. You have found incredible and incredibly well-deserved success with Fourth Wing. We talked a little bit about how it affected Iron Flame. Has it had any sort of unexpected impacts on your life outside of writing?
So for the most part, I'm a hermit. Like I stay home as much as possible, or as much as my kids' hockey schedule will allow me to. And so I try to, like, the things that matter the most in my life haven't changed, right? I'm married over 20 years. I have all my kids, and my kids are always the number one important thing. So even if work is going horribly awry and I have to leave for a hockey game, I'm going with my kids, or I'll have to leave for the school play or things like that. I think I was in Vegas for the Las Vegas Book Festival, and I was walking through the Bellagio, and my business manager was telling me just some news that I'm processing, and I'm walking like this and processing, and someone screamed out my name. And I've never, like, authors, like, our book covers aren't plastered on our forehead, right? So it's not like you're walking around with the giant, Ember and the Ashes are all my age, like, on your shirt. Like, hey, right? So I never expect to get recognized. And it threw me so hard that, like, I spun. I thought it was like a friend. I thought it was like someone I hadn't seen in 20 years or something. And I stopped and was like, oh my gosh. So that's taking a little getting used to. And I think the amount of eyes on me is disconcerting. Like, I'm not used to it. It's all happened. So I've been writing for 10 years, but this blew up so quickly that the processes I used for 10 years in almost every facet of my career, from where I do signings to how I handle events to how I handle social media to how I do anything else. I can't use those same processes anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think it almost would have been easier had this happened with a debut who didn't have anything in place. But it's kind of like how to teach an old dog new tricks. Nothing I did is effective or works anymore. So I think that has been the toughest part of this, is having to rearrange everything about how I work and think about my career. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I hope you have, I mean, I'm sure you have a good like writing friend group, because I feel like that's really helpful. I feel like without my like kind of like writing friends, whether it was people who debuted with me and we all kind of went through this together, or just people who I met along the way, like those are the folks who end up kind of saving me. And I actually tell this to young writers too, like just even if you're not published, if you're just starting out, like find your fellow writer friends.
Yeah. I've had the same friends for probably since almost I started. So 10 years. I've had the same best friend since I was 15. So like when push comes to shove in those moments, it's still just me, and we're just writing, and we're just sprinting, or we're just trying to, just get through the next book. So the normalcy is what I crave. And I never knew how much I would crave normalcy until I didn't have it. And that's the best way to put it. So, and I'm also, I'm when you get interview requests or things like that, I've had to tell people they can't come to the house, they can't get near my kids. That is all new to me. It is very much like whole new world. Here you go, and handle it with grace. And you're like, okay, let's see what we've got. So I think that's the biggest change.
Yeah. Well, I'm wishing you luck with all of that. So hopefully you, as long as you and your family always stay safe. I always feel like that's the most important thing. So, let's talk about spice.
Let's change it. Let's get off the dark and depressing.
Everyone's favorite subject. So do you prefer writing the longing banter build up, or do you prefer the like super spicy scenes that are like the intimate sex scenes, like which, or both, like which ones do you like?
It depends on the day you ask me and like what's going on. Are my kids home from school? Like right now my daughter's home and causing havoc upstairs with my husband. What's going on? Is it stressful? Is it this? What's happening? Mostly I prefer the longing, the sexual tension. I prefer the moments of will they, won't they, and the moments they don't. The moments that are just right there and then they pull back, or the moments right before they break and give in. Those are my favorite to write. Sex scenes never bother me. I'm a romance author at heart. I think it's where I started. It's where I'm very comfortable. And honestly, it always cracks me up that people are more comfortable with violence than they are sex. You know what I mean? So if like I can write a book where people it's okay.
It's like the immigrant upbringing of like the parents like covering your eyes when like the sex scene comes on. I still, when I'm writing a sex scene, I'm still like,
I get my parents are always really open about sex. My mom, she's an OBGYN nurse. Like that's, so it was never like a big taboo subject, but I always asked my dad not to read my books because he's just a highly critical science fiction fantasy reader, right? Like he's the guy that's like, well, you're number one in the New York Times and that's great, but you have a Hugo. I was like, Dad. But I'd ask him, right, that's legit. And I'm like, Dad, don't read this. And then my mom goes in for open heart surgery and my dad reads it. And because he's really sitting in the waiting room, he's like, that's wonderful. I love it. And I'm like, thank goodness. And then he gets to all the sex scenes and I'm like, like, are you really reading those? No. And he was fine with them. They never bother me. Sometimes they're harder to write just because they're not like what I specialize in. And they have to be in a place where it's the most logical place for the characters and there's no other option for the characters. Like this is where we are in the romance arc. This is where the readers expect, when other things are happening, to keep that steam level moving and ebbing and flowing. I just need a good cup of coffee and a good playlist and some quiet, like no kids, no husband, no puppies running amok. And then we're pretty good to go.
Good to go. Yeah. No, I feel that.
I do ask myself sometimes as I'm writing them though, I'm like, are you really going to use that word? Are you, Rebecca? Are you? Like I'm talking to myself and I'm like, I am.
But, I really felt like I read a ton of romance. I don't write romance generally, but I read a lot of romance. And I feel like you had a really great balance of kind of like it was sort of very much longing and yearning heavy, but you still get the satisfaction of when when it is finally they will, right? So so I really enjoyed that. And I obviously, me and millions of others, I'm not the only one. So so whatever you're doing, stick to it because it's working. Okay, so this is my last like official question, and then I have a bunch of like fun little well, I think they're fun. Some people might not, but they're like lightning round questions.
Okay.
So this question is, if you could put Violet and Xaden in any other fictional world, where would you put them? And their dragons. Take their dragons with them. Why not?
Yeah, you have to. If you don't take their dragons, they die. I would love to see them in Game of Thrones, mostly because I would love to see what happens when the Targaryens aren't the only ones with dragons.
Yes.
I think that would probably be where I'm at. And and they're not dragons in Game of Thrones. Everyone's always like the dragons. They're wyvern. They only have
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and they call them dragons, and they can be dragons, but it's so funny because in my series there was such a distinction that I had to like, we sat down in the publishing house and I was like, all right, everybody, here we go. Dragons have 4 legs, wyvern have 2. For all like the promo.
Yeah.
So I would love to see them in Game of Thrones to see how they would handle other dragons and to see how the Targaryens would handle that.
Would you put them in Game of Thrones like first season or in House of the Dragon era? I'm assuming you've seen
them in the Game of Thrones era because I would love to see the shock on the Targaryens' face because they think they're the only ones that have this bloodline that can will control the dragons, which is different because I mean, my humans control their dragons 0.
Yeah.
The dragons do whatever the heck they want in my books. So I think I would rather see the shock on like Daenerys's face to see that there are other dragons, that she doesn't have the only ones.
Yeah. No, definitely. I love that. Okay, lightning round questions.
All right, I'm ready.
Your coffee shop order.
Okay, it's seasonal. So salted caramel mocha, but it's got to have oat milk in it.
Okay, all right.
It's not dairy.
That's your current one, not like say springtime?
No, so that is typically if I can have it. Like I have a peppermint mocha, like I have peppermint mocha coffee creamer right here. Okay. So it's either peppermint mocha or salted caramel mocha. I tend to stick to one flavor and just ride with it. I don't change a lot. I'm so boring.
No. I drink black coffee with like a teeny bit of cream to make it brown. I have the most boring drink ever.
What about sugar?
I usually have something sweet. So it's like I like the bitter sweet combo. So like I'll have my coffee and then I'll have like a cookie or like an apple or something with it that's like sweet.
Okay, you scare me a little now. I respect you. The mad respect on that. No, I'm like, I require my coffee to be almost as blonde as I am. Yeah. So that's like
I always joke that I like my coffee like my men, which is like tall and brown.
My husband says he likes his coffee like he likes his women sweet and blonde.
Yeah.
That is, kid you not. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry.
Who is your favorite book character outside of your own?
Outside of my own. Oh gosh. Leaving your books out of it as I'm telling you. Oh my gosh. Probably Talia from Mercedes Lackey's Heralds of Valdemar.
Nice.
Which I guess she's small and frail, which is probably why I love her.
Yeah.
Because I never had anyone small and frail, or when I was growing up, she was the closest heroine I could find like me.
Yeah. Mercedes has such an incredible like such a huge like backlist of books that you could find like so many relatable characters in it. All right. One item you must have to write. Not a computer. Something weird.
Oh, I know. You can probably see it in the background. My guitar.
Oh, I guess I do see it in the background. All right, you play?
I do. I played since I was 18. I have to play for about a half an hour before I start writing. It's the only way to like leave the world and like what's happening outside my doors, because we have 6 kids, man. It is never a dull moment. So in order to leave all that outside my office doors, I play for about a half an hour to kind of wash the world off, and then I can write.
I see. Do you play your own music or do you play like stuff you like?
I play stuff I like. My days of ever thinking I could write a song stayed back when I was like 18. That was not my path. We're going to leave that to the experts.
So do you just, sorry, I'm fascinated by this. I love music. So as you probably know. So do you just play or do you like sing too?
So I sing. I went to college on a vocal scholarship.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's so cool. Look
I
at the
did.
stuff we're learning about Rebecca. All
I
right.
know now that I look at it, it's like things I don't learn. So like I'll sing karaoke or like to my kids and they're like, please stop. But
Of course,
mostly
that's what kids do.
I know, right? Because nothing makes me cool except for I did get a Comic-Con badge for my oldest son, and then I was cool for a day,
Yeah.
and I reveled in it. I was like, "Am I
Yeah.
cool today?"
Mhm.
So I mostly sing and play, and also I think singing also stimulates your vagus nerve and things like
Okay.
that. So it all just helps kind of settle me in.
I should use that as an excuse to sing. I sound like a dying cat when I sing, but
Do it. It's
yeah. No,
who's
no, that's my
home? Who
new
can hear
that's
you?
yeah, no, well, my husband works from home. So,
It's all
and he
right.
has an amazing voice, which is super annoying. So
It's that's amazing. I met my husband singing karaoke, and he's always like this close to being on key, like this close. You're always like, oh, you're almost there.
right
Oh,
there.
you're almost there. But like, no, just do it. Just sing. And if he hears you, whatever, he sing
Yeah.
loudly.
Yeah, I'll sing loudly. That's a great idea. We talked a little bit about romance tropes. What is your favorite romance trope?
Okay. So I love to read enemies to lovers. I typically suck writing it. And I understand that Violet and Xaden are enemies to lovers. I get it. But usually I write contemporary, right? Because this is my first fantasy. And I always feel like enemies to lovers is solvable by a cup of coffee and a therapist. Like legit. Like
Mm,
you guys could just sit down for an hour
you
and hash out
talk.
the fact that, yeah, like
Just talk to each other.
you're not really enemies. You're mad that he got to the copier before you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so but I love to read it. I absolutely love because other authors are just masterful at it. And I always feel like I got to solve their problem in a conversation.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I love enemies to lovers too. I'm also a Grumpy Sunshine fan.
Oh, but are you like a grumpy, like the guy's got to be grumpy or the girl's got to be grumpy?
I actually prefer when the girl is grumpy. I'm
Okay.
actually that what I'm writing right now has like a slightly crankier girl, like a sharper. She's like edgier, and the boy is a little sweeter. So I'm enjoying that. So
Do you ever fear that readers will be harsher on your grumpier heroine than they are on a grumpier hero?
not anymore.
Okay.
Now I'm like I feel like the series, but especially All My Rage, like was such a departure that I feel like I'm like I have no fears anymore. You can hate me and it's fine.
I aspire to that level. I aspire. It's, you are an icon. I aspire.
So I got so much crap for that book. So um all right, dawn or dusk?
Definitely dusk. Dawn does not belong to humans.
Agreed.
I'm
Dragons
an
maybe.
adult. Yes.
Cake or pie? We talked about how you like
Uh,
cake.
I can't have gluten, but cake all day.
Yeah, I'm with you with that. I do like pies, but cake is just it's cake.
Love cake and icing. I used to be a cake decorator, like cake and icing and just sweetness. And oh, I'm done. I'm done. Sorry, now I'm
Yeah,
gonna be hungry.
perfection. No, 100%. And the last question, very important, very serious. Would you rather fight a fully grown silverback male gorilla once a year or an angry raccoon in your car every day? And this doesn't have to be lightning. I'd actually really like you to think about this one.
Like the Jeopardy theme is going. I find that question to be incredibly unfair. There's no good solution
Like, I
there.
don't want to fight either of them.
I'm like, well, I really love my car. Um, I really love my car, and raccoons are scary, man. They're scary, but a gorilla could kill me. But if it's
Right.
once a year,
Once a
I only
year.
have anxiety for like the week right before, and I already have chronic anxiety. It's just it's one of those really fun parts of me. Um, I think I'm gonna have to go with the gorilla because it's once a year, and maybe you get the crap beaten out of you, but you're only anxious for the week before. As we're a raccoon, knowing every morning I gotta fight that thing to get in the car, I'm never sleeping. I
Hmm.
am never sleeping. I would never be able to like relax enough to have a normal day. So we're gonna go with the gorilla.
All right. Rebecca would choose a gorilla. This is good to know. It's one
If
of
you
my
send a
favorite
gorilla,
questions.
if you send a gorilla to my house, we're gonna fight. Okay.
Yeah, I won't. I promise. I don't know
Okay.
any
I was like,
actually.
don't just hypothetical. Like just
Yeah, no, I don't know any gorillas, but I will not send it to your house. I promise. Thank you so much, Rebecca. This was a really fun conversation. I enjoyed hearing everything you had to say about the book. Everybody read Iron Flame. I'm sure I don't even have to say that. I'm sure they've all already gotten it and are ripping through it or have already ripped through it as we speak.
And thank you for doing this. I'm really I'm blown away. I've always loved your books. Like always.
Oh, thank you.
I'm really humbled. So thank you.
Of course. It was a delight.